What's up, guys? I hope you're well. Today, we're checking out F1 Fans Beginner's Guide and Details You Need to Know. Well, I'm just now learning F1, so I think this will be very nice for me to check out. Let's get into it, shall we?
Formula One is one of the most complicated sports around. From the cars to the rules and regulations, it can be pretty confusing for new fans. Do you know what DRS is? And do you
No.
know how each driver is helped by their team? Well,
No.
don't worry, we've got you covered. Stay
Good.
tuned as we break down all the things new F1 fans need to know. 1
Okay.
second doesn't sound like a lot, and in day-to-day life, you never notice a second go by. But in Formula One, the difference between half a second and a second is an eternity. It's really important to understand just how precious time is for F1. During qualifying, you will hear commentators say that there are tenths, hundredths, or thousands of a second between drivers. These are tiny fractions of a second. Qualifying is when drivers compete for the fastest time to start closer to the front, and so these fractions of a second can be the difference between starting in pole position up front or starting down at the back. During the race, time is just as important. During a race, drivers have to stop their car at least once to change tires. During the
Makes
pit stop,
sense.
mechanics change each wheel of the car as quickly as possible. To have a
Yep.
quick pit stop is a big advantage and can mean the difference between first place and second place. The quickest pit stop in Formula One was by Red Bull at the 2019 Brazilian Grand Prix. The pit crew was able to change all the tires in just 1.82 seconds. That's less time than it takes to listen to this sentence. If you haven't been watching the sport long, then you might not know
Wow, that's
what a 1 second,
remarkable.
5 second, or 10-second lead means. If a car is 1 second behind another car, then it is within overtaking distance. If it is further back in around 5 seconds, then this is a pretty comfortable gap for the leader, and
Yeah.
anything more than 10 seconds is a massive gap. Next time you watch a race, have a look at how far ahead the leader is from the car in last place. It can get to more than a minute, which means there is basically no chance of them winning. Next, how the
Wow.
points add up. If you didn't watch it, last season ended in a pretty crazy way. Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen went into the race equal on points. But what does that mean? And how does the point system work in Formula One? Formula One is a sport that takes place over a whole season. At the moment, the season is 23 races long, but races are added or removed from the calendar each year. At the end of the season, whoever has the most points wins the title. That's pretty simple. But did you know that there are actually two competitions happening at once? There is the Drivers' Championship and the Constructors' Championship. The Drivers' Championship is the title that all of the drivers want to win. This is the one that Max Verstappen won last year. To win it, all they have to score the most points, which are based only on their race results. For
Makes
first
sense.
place, a driver will get 25 points. For second place, they get 18 points. These points go all the way down to 10th place, which gets just 1 point. This same point system is used for the Constructors' Championship. Each driver is actually a partner, and so there are 2 cars competing for each team. At the end of the season, they combine the points of both drivers to see which team has the most points. Last year was Mercedes, and they have won the Constructors' Championship 8 years in a row since 2014. That's what they say, teamwork makes the dream work. Next, not just the driver. If you are watching a Formula One race for the first time, you might think that the drivers are on their own out there. It's just them out there in the car. But there is so much more going on than first meets the eye. Formula One is a team sport. The drivers are one member of that team, and a very important member, but they rely on the rest of their team just as much. Each driver has a race engineer who they communicate with through a radio in their helmet. The race engineer will give them all kinds of information that is important to them. They will tell them what's happening on the track, like who's behind them and who's in front. But they also tell them about how the car is performing and what they should be doing to get the most out of it. In an F1 car, there are a number of sensors located inside and outside the car to monitor the condition of the tires, the engine, the temperature, and a bunch of other things.
Makes
These
sense.
sensors send information straight back to the team in the garage at the track, but also to a team back at the factory. From this information, engineers can tell the drivers what they need to do. Sometimes the car gets too hot and it needs to cool down, and sometimes the tires are not hot enough, so they don't have enough grip. These are all really important strategic decisions that win and lose races. Altogether, the teams produce a whopping 160 terabytes of data each weekend. Do you know what DRS stands for? And
So far, it's very similar to NASCAR. Obviously, way different style of driving, but the way the points work and pit strategy and just seconds, like the leaders, like, a tenth of a second or a thousandth of a second off in qualifying. NASCAR is the same way. So far, it's very similar. So I think at this point, I could easily watch F1 and understand fully what's going on.
How it is used? And do you know how Formula One is fighting climate change? Don't go anywhere to find out. Up next, the cutting-edge technology. Formula One can be difficult to understand because a lot of the competition is not actually on the track at all. Back at each team's factories, engineers try to come up with the fastest and most consistent car they can produce. This process is incredibly complex and costs hundreds of millions of dollars. They even have their own wind tunnels, which are used to simulate cars traveling at high speeds. What makes all the cars move? Engines. This is a huge part of development in Formula One, and cars with the best engine are often able to win races. The Mercedes engine has been the most effective engine in the last 10 years, and it has some amazing figures. When the first internal combustion engine was invented way back in the 19th century, it only had a thermal efficiency of 17%. What that means is that it was wasting almost 3/4 of the fuel because we didn't know how to use it. In the last few years, though, Formula One engines have evolved to have a thermal efficiency of more than 50%. That's double what a lot of cars on the road have today. That means that you use less fuel and cars can drive longer. This is really useful for regular cars, but also for a range of different industries. F1 is also now developing technology that will be more sustainable. The sport aims to have 100% sustainable fuel in just 3 years. In other words, F1 will run on fuel that is not so harmful to the planet. This is really important for fighting climate change, and F1 is trying to do its best to help. What is DRS? Something you might hear the commentators talk about a lot is DRS, but what is it and why is it important? DRS stands for Drag Reduction System. It was first introduced in 2011 to make overtaking easier for drivers. DRS is a component on the back part of the car called the rear wing. Normally, it's closed, which means that there is more resistance to the air and the car goes a little bit slower, but the driver can press a button to open this part, which makes the car have less air resistance and go faster. Think about a paper airplane. If you throw it in the wind vertically, it will have a tough time traveling, but if you throw it horizontally in the way that you normally throw it, then it will glide through the air and go further. It's the same idea, but drivers are not allowed to use DRS whenever they want. Firstly, there are dedicated DRS zones down long straight parts of the track where drivers are allowed to use it. And secondly, they can only use it when they are less than 1 second behind the car in front. How much does DRS help? Well, it depends. It is estimated that DRS normally boosts the speed of an F1 car by around 10 to 12 kilometers per hour. This may not sound like much, but in the world of F1, this is a massive difference, and it is normally enough to overtake the car in front. So there you go. Next time you watch F1, you can explain to your friends what DRS is and how it works. Did you know about anything on the list? And how long have you been watching Formula One? Let us know in the comments below. If you're new, then welcome to the community. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.
All right, I will say, excuse me, I did watch F1E yesterday or Saturday with my neighbor, and we were watching it. I'm like, what the hell is that sound? Sound like a bunch of mosquitoes going by. I'm like, oh no, oh, I don't like that. I don't like it. It's just sounds like remote control cars. I'm like, wow, that's pretty bad. I don't like that it's going that direction, but you gotta do what you gotta do. But a lot of the stuff they talk to is very comparable in some ways to how things operate with NASCAR. So I'm pretty sure if I put an F1 race on, I'll understand what is going on in the race. But yeah, that was cool. That was a good video. Very good information and useful information that I will remember. And yeah, definitely going to get down to some more F1 videos. With that being said, I want to thank you all for watching. Stay safe and don't forget to wash your hands.